Russian sabotage groups have indeed been detected in Pokrovsk, Donetsk Oblast. Of roughly 150 enemy troops sent toward the city, only about 30 managed to reach it, according to analysts from the Deep State Project. The occupiers reportedly organized themselves into 3 tactical groups of around 50 soldiers each. Their mission was to destabilize the city, create panic among residents, and force Ukrainian forces to withdraw, mirroring earlier events in Selidov. Deep State estimates that the route from Selidov to Pokrovsk took Russian troops 14 days, 4 days to reach the industrial zone in Peshenoy, and another 10 to advance from Peshenoy to Zashchednikov Ukraine Street in Pokrovsk. This slow pace, around 600 meters per day, was likely an attempt to avoid detection. The groups were supplied with communications gear, water, and food via drone drops, enabling coordination and situational awareness. To remain hidden, they used special camouflage cloaks, took shelter in random buildings, and carried trackers to record their routes. Deep State reports that around 120 of the 150 soldiers were killed, many by Ukrainian aerial attacks. Some may have survived after being wounded. The remaining saboteurs began operations in Pokrovsk on July 19, but Ukrainian forces have been hunting them ever since. Another portion of the group reportedly surrendered this week. While the mission created many difficulties for Ukraine's defense forces, analysts stress that any plan expecting an 80% casualty rate before reaching the objective cannot be called successful. On August 9, Viktor Tregobov, a representative of the OSGV Dnipro, described the situation in the Pokrovsk sector as the most challenging in the past year, adding that it is more difficult now than at any previous time, due to the Russians throwing in a huge crowd of people. Earlier, Ukraine's commander-in-chief Alexander Syrsky called the situation in Pokrovsk threatening, noting that powerful Russian formations are currently concentrated there. Meanwhile, Russian occupation forces have begun a major transfer of troops and equipment to the Zaporizhia direction. According to Petro Andriushenko, head of the Center for the Study of the Occupation, more than 30 trucks carrying ammunition, tanks, and fuel tankers were spotted, along with 25 lowboys hauling tanks and other armored vehicles. The summer offensive of Russian forces in Ukraine has concluded with only limited tactical gains, while the Ukrainian armed forces counteroffensive has yet to begin. This assessment comes from former FSB officer Igor Strelkov-Gherkin, currently serving a prison sentence in Russia, who shared his views on his Telegram channel. Gherkin believes Ukrainian troops are obliged to strike now, at a moment when the Russian advance has run out of steam, their defensive readiness is uneven, and their reserves have melted away, or are entirely depleted. I'm still willing to bet 3-1 that Ukraine's counteroffensive will begin soon, and it's unlikely they will wait until September, he wrote. I still see the southern, Crimean, Zaporizhia axis as the most probable and dangerous direction for their strike. But, of course, they could choose another sector if they think it will yield at least a small victory. He added that the ongoing war of attrition poses a stark choice for the Kremlin. Either abandon the peacetime economy and commit fully to a war effort until complete victory, or risk the conflict being won alternatively, and likely not by Russia. Meanwhile, Ukraine continues to inflict damage in Crimea ahead of the anticipated counterattack. Soldiers from the HUR's Ghost unit recently struck one of Russia's most valuable radar stations, the 98L6 Yenisei, in occupied Crimea. According to her, this rare and costly system is part of the S-500 Prometheus air defense complex and can also be used with S-400 Triumph systems. The destruction of the Yenisei is a significant blow to the air defense capabilities of the Russian occupiers in Crimea. The fight continues, the agency stated. Separately, Ukraine's security service reported on Monday that it destroyed one Russian Su-30 fighter jet and damaged 4 other military aircraft during an overnight drone strike on Crimea. The attack targeted a military aviation depot, completely destroying the Su-30, damaging another, and also damaging 3 Su-24 bomber aircraft. A massive Russian force of roughly 100,000 troops is determined to seize Pokrovsk. But the town is heavily defended by Ukrainian drones, artillery, infantry, and even a few Leopard 2A4 tanks belonging to the ill-fated 155th Mechanized Brigade. According to Euromaidan Press, the Russian strategy is not a direct assault but an attempt to encircle and cut off Pokrovsk. This would require taking Rodinsky, then pushing west across the main north-south TO515 highway, passing Dobropilya and Rodinsky before closing in on Pokrovsk. The only other main route into the city, just west of town, is also in danger of being overrun. The Russian center group of forces, including the 51st Combined Arms Army, has spent a year advancing from the ruins of Avdiivka, 40 kilometers to the east. The costly march stalled on Pokrovsk's outskirts around the new year, but the Kremlin has since mobilized hundreds of thousands of new troops, sending many into the Pokrovsk sector. Charging forward on motorcycles or advancing on foot, Russian forces took heavy losses during probing attacks on the city's defenses. Last month, however, the 9th Motor Rifle Brigade, or a nearby unit, managed to exploit a significant gap in the Ukrainian lines near Rodinsky, Euromaidan Press reports. Rodinsky has now become the focal point of the fighting. As Russian cab glide bombs pound the village, the 51st CAA is poised for a possible push. The command of the enemy's center operational grouping on the Pokrovsk direction completes preparatory actions, actively accelerating preparations for the assault on Pokrovsk, the Ukrainian Center for Defense Strategies stated. Any advance through Rodinsky and into Pokrovsk will be costly for both sides, especially for the Russians. We anticipate a spike in Russian losses, Frontelligence Insight assessed, but also the possibility of a faster tempo of advances. To slow the assault and inflict maximum casualties, Ukraine has reinforced the Rodinsky area with elements of the 142nd Mechanized Brigade, now equipped with German-made Leopard 1A5 tanks. Despite these reinforcements, Ukrainian forces in and around Pokrovsk remain outnumbered by tens of thousands. Russia has kept up its recruitment drive with lavish enlistment bonuses, while Ukraine continues to face difficulties in recruiting and drafting fresh troops for its exhausted brigades.